Alan Lentz, Sydney State's Albany Bureau Chief. Joining me today is Hector Batista, CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters of New York City. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
And your organization is one of the most venerable nonprofits in New York City. In fact, this week marks its 110th anniversary. Right. Tell me what that means for the organization.
Well, it means a lot. I mean, to have an organization be around in New York City, in the country for 110 years, doing the kind of work that we've been able to do over those years, it's an honor to be at the helm of such an organization.
And now this is the first ever Big Brothers Big Sisters organization in the nation, and it's since expanded to all over the country.
Yeah, we were established in 1904 by Ernest Coulter, who was then the clerk of city courts in Manhattan. And he started it because he read a story about a young man who was about to be convicted by the courts. And he realized then that this young man should be going to prison. So he went to a local men's club and he asked some of his friends to become Big Brothers. And he got 40 volunteers. And with that, our organization was born. And in 1977, the national office was spun out of our office, and the national movement was started. And today, we have about 300 affiliates throughout the country, servicing a little bit over 250,000 young people throughout the nation.
And I believe there's 3,600 young people currently served in New York City right now.
Correct.
And where do your resources come from? Where do you get your funding? Is there any taxpayer dollars involved?
You know, we, for an organization that's been around as long as we have, we don't get as much city and state funding as we should. Roughly in our budget, probably about 10% of the money that we have comes from the government. We're very grateful to get that. But most of our funding comes from about 48% of it comes from special events through our board, and then about 17-18% from foundations, and the rest from individual giving.
Now, I know that during the recession, a lot of nonprofits struggled with donations drying up. Was that an issue for you? Are you doing better than you were just a few years ago?
Yeah, like any other not-for-profit in 2008, 2000, we had, we had to, sort of cut down on the amount of staff that we had, although the board made a decision not to cut down on the service. So they, our program, the key to our program is we have a master level social worker that works with the big brother and the little to that match. And the board made the decision at the time, even though we cut other parts in the agency, not to cut services. So we continue to provide the same kind of service, even though our funding had shrunk a little bit.
And right now, is there more of a need for more donations, more money, or more volunteers, more Big Brothers and Big Sisters?
Well, both. I mean, in New York City, let me put the needs in some perspective. In New York City, there's about 250,000 children that come from single-parent household. That's the population we're trying to target. Kids that come that are in the free lunch program, about 70% of the kids that we service on that program. So we obviously, the more money we have, the more kids, the more children we could service. But for us, our need is twofold. We have more boys coming to us because boys act out, and the single parents see that in boys. But we have less men volunteers, so we need more male volunteers. The flip side is we need more girls to come into our program because we have more women volunteering. So we're trying to service as many kids as we can. So the really for us right now is more men volunteers, and we're trying to get more girls. Now girls have a tendency of not showing they're acting out as much, but our motto is that a mother shouldn't have to bring that daughter up on her own. She could get the help of a big sister to help her some of those challenges.
And I understand you just moved to a new headquarters here in Lower Manhattan. Do you have any other expansion plans on the horizon?
Yeah, we moved to Manhattan, to Lower Manhattan. We had been in our old location since 1957 on 30th Street. We had a townhouse, and then we leased. 2/3 of my staff was in a lease space. From an economic point of view, it really made sense, and from bringing the organization together and create more synergy in the organization, made sense for us to sell our location on 30th Street, which we own, and we were able to move the organization into a new condo in downtown Manhattan and save the organization about $75,000. So we were able to be on one floor, be more efficient. More importantly, we've really been able to create an environment that's more friendly for the kids that we service. One of our biggest push right now is we're a mentoring organization, but with a strong educational component. So we're doing a lot of work around for our high school kids, SAT prep courses, free SAT prep courses. For our middle school kids, we're doing a lot of tutoring courses. And let me give you some stats so you understand. 97% of the kids in our program get promoted to the next grade. 96% of them are graduating from high school. 86% of them are going on to college. If you compare that to the Board of Education, which is about 62%. So we're doing, the kids in our program, once you have a mentor in your life, they just do much better.
I'd be curious, and do city officials, education officials look at the way you're doing mentoring? Do they try to emulate that in any way or incorporate that into what the school system's doing?
We've been trying for a while to try to get the city to really focus on that. I mean, I was appointed by former Mayor Bloomberg to the Young Men Initiative. I now have been reappointed by Mayor de Blasio. He's trying to do some work around that area. We think that mentoring is an important component. The challenge for a lot of the young people that, the educational system needs to really focus in my opinion, is that a lot of the kids that are, at least in our program, are dealing with a host of issues that prevents them from really focusing on learning. And I'll give you one example. We had a young man in our program that was failing math. And the reason he was failing math was because he was getting to the math class late. The reason he was getting late to the math class is his mother had two other children. He's a single mother, worked 3 different jobs. So his job was to get his little sister and his little brother to school. So he was getting to the math class late. Now, that kid was looked at as a kid who couldn't do math. The reality is, once we addressed that issue, he started so much better, and he actually ended up getting an A in the class. It's just these kind of little things, these socioeconomic issues that our kids are dealing with, that I think if the Board of Education sort of focus on those things, it will go such a long way. And that's why we have the kind of the success rate that we have in terms of our program.
Hector Batista, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.